I have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. A dream where you, the once enslaved, can be free. Free of that which once shackled you. Free of the burdens that were placed upon you. Free of the evil that once ruled over you. Free of having to answer to the man. For now, this is a time of liberty. Liberty Media. And it sure is nice to meet all you F1 folks. I'm glad we're getting rid of that little guy. Sheesh, what a dick. Hello and welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed, not just any old episode, but the first episode of Season 13.
No, it isn't.
Well, what is it then?
Series 13.
Are you sure it's not
Series
Season?
13. I repeat, Series 13.
But we're following our 13th Formula One season, is that not allowed?
No, we're not just about Formula One, we are
True.
a series of programmes that lasts beyond the Formula One season.
Made in Britain.
And we're made in Britain.
With taps, not
This is Britain,
faucets.
goddammit.
But it's not just
It's
that.
a series.
It's just the word season doesn't make any sense in the context of a series of broadcasts.
Now we've established the protocol, let me introduce you to my, as ever, co-host in Gareth Jones on Speed, Richard Porter.
Hi.
Well, it's very grumpy, that was. I never heard
It
anyone...
took me 3 hours to get here this evening.
Oh, and someone else who had a hellish journey from West London, Zog.
Hello.
It wasn't 3 hours for you, was it?
It wasn't that bad, no, but it was a bit tedious.
Is that why you're less grumpy than Richard?
Yeah, I haven't spent quite so infuriating a spell in gridlock.
Let us not worry too much about, who spent more time than who in the car and who shot and killed who. Let us celebrate the future that is unfolding before us, this glorious Brexit Trump-based future.
Oh, I'm just going home.
Yeah, me too. It's been nice, thanks, bye. Can we find solace in cars? You know how people binge eat,
Got to be
don't
better than
they?
that stuff.
Yeah. Can we binge on cars? There's a song, isn't there? It goes, nothing can change the shape of things to come. But I reckon things have changed the shape of things to come. Because the vast majority of cars that people are PRing...
I was going to say, I think that song doesn't make any sense because all kinds of things
Shape the things to come.
It's just rubbish.
Yeah,
basically,
I know.
Yeah,
Great song.
anyway.
Philosophically, it's flawed. Yeah.
Which song is that?
Slade covered it, but I don't think they wrote it. If I know they didn't write it,
It
I don't know
sounds
who
like
wrote
it would be the Carpenters or something.
No, this
If
is
it is,
quite...
it'll be one of the less wonderful things that the Carpenters did, if I may suggest.
Yes.
As a big Carpenters fan.
I like woodworkers generally, not just carpenters, but the guys who do fitting.
Do you know what's annoying about that lyric is that it would have fitted if they'd said many things can change
Yeah.
the shape of
Yeah.
things to come.
Well, I
You
think
should go back and tell
lots.
them.
I
Can
think
change them.
the song was written, in the late 60s. And what they were saying in the song was that we're about to go through a revolution. Nothing can change the shape of things to come. Nothing can stop this
They were kind of talking
tumble
about the sort
forward.
of the momentum of
Yeah.
history, the sort of
Yeah.
the
Okay.
trajectory of history and
More of
the
a
inevitability of
philosophical
certain...
sort of...
Yeah.
If you believe in fate, if you're Thomas Hardy, and you believe in a benign fate,
Yeah.
then it's preordained in some way. Maybe that's what they meant. Maybe they were all big fans of Tess of the D'Urbervilles.
I think they're daft, aren't they? Because there's nothing worse than devolving responsibility.
That's a hell of
We've
a
gone
face,
very
well
far
done.
off our usual track. haven't
So-
we?
Isn't it? Well, it's the age of enlightenment, isn't it? This 2017.
But it's not. That's the okay. I'm going to shut up about what's been wrong with 2016. Yes, let's hope this is a return to a bit more of an age of
Well,
enlightenment.
we're looking at more and more futuristic cars appearing on a daily basis. Let's take something which has stirred up a lot of people's juices recently, and that is the Faraday Future FF91.
The one they just showed at CES, right? Is that the one?
Yeah.
Yes,
CES,
and
the commu-
it's the one with the LiDAR that pops out of the bonnet, which I don't understand because...
Why isn't it there all the time?
Well, because of pedestrian safety regulations.
Well,
So are they saying, I suppose, when it's popped out, the idea is, well, it's exempt from pedestrian safety because it would never run over a pedestrian because it can see the pedestrian. I can think that's the only reason why they can get away with it. Otherwise, you can't have a ruddy great thing poking out your bonnet. That's why they outlaw Jaguar Leapers and why Rolls-Royce Spirit of Ecstasy have to pop down if it gets in
It's a fair way off production, though, isn't it? So this isn't...
Well...
They will have time to sort these things out.
I think you're right, it's a fair way off production, but if you ask Faraday Future, they'll say, no, it's very close.
It's moments away. In fact, I'm building it now. Look, it's ready. There's a lot of scepticism about Faraday Future. The chap who set up the company, what's his name? Jia Yu-Ting. He set up the Chinese equivalent of Netflix. He's got a lot of money.
He has got a lot of money. Yeah.
A lot of money, and he's trying to do an Elon Musk because there is a model that proves that can work, but is it repeatable? Tesla have worked very hard to get where they are now. Faraday Future expecting to do a similar thing. Do you reckon they'll do it, Richard?
Well, now hang on, let's just go back a step.
Well, yeah.
Tesla proved it's possible to create a brand new car company and a brand new range of cars from scratch, and fair play to them for that. But I don't believe they make any money or are even close to making any money. In fact, I think it's the opposite. I think they're hemorrhaging quite a lot of cash, which is fine if you're Elon Musk. To a point, I mean, he hasn't got bottomless pockets. It seems like it's very expensive. You've got to be in for the long haul to do this. So
they haven't demonstrated long-term viability.
But I think this one of the interesting things about the sort of new generation of multi-squabillionaires is that they are... I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I say massive egomaniacs who want to compete with each other as much as just to do things that will add to their fortunes, which is why they're all... It's like the mark of a billionaire now is going to space, isn't it? Musk's at it, Jeff Bezos, Branston,
But I
Bigelow.
would question how much they're driven by this need to compete with other squillionaires on doing kind of this big thing, that big thing. I really think that Musk... certainly, with the SpaceX thing, he really believes in the idea of going to space, and he really wants to be part of that story. He wants to create the technology, and he wants to make these missions happen. He wants to go to Mars. He really believes in that.
Oh, sure. But I'm sure that so does Jeff Bezos, and so does old Branston Pickle. He wants to make space travel, or near space travel, affordable, doesn't he? That's half his gist.
Yeah, but at least these guys are attaining to that. They don't want to be Tony Stark, millionaire alcoholic munitions dealer. You know, they're not investing in weapons. Fair play to them, they're investing in civil technology. But what of the car? What of the Faraday Future? You've seen it. Do you remember the Aston Martin Bulldog by William Townes, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Look at the Faraday Future. It's got a bit of which way is it going? Is it going forward or backwards about it, which the Bulldog had?
Yeah.
It's not an unattractive car, and what it does have is that very long wheelbase and short overhangs. That's the way cars, I think, are going to be proportioned in the future as they go to electric power, because then you stick all the batteries in the middle within the wheelbase, and it has a beneficial effect at sort of moments of inertia and stuff. Yeah. And you'll see it on the Jag I-Pace as well. You look at that, as the proportions are very un-Jaguar-like.
It's pronounced Ipache.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, I got that wrong. And that... no overhangs, very long wheelbase. It makes the Tesla look actually quite old-fashioned because that just has quite conventional car proportions. But
that's exactly what I was going to say, because the Tesla, when you look at that now, looks more like a sort of Mondeo merged with an Aston Martin Rapide, sort of slopey, swoopy, classic-y car, whereas the Faraday Future thing, and yes, the I-Pace, are much sort of squarer, more 70s interpretation of the future.
But maybe Tesla, in designing their cars, I wouldn't be surprised if they factored in the idea that they wanted to make their cars fit in with the then current technology, the current styles.
It's a
with
car
culture. They want to,
At the moment, with electric cars, in the more mainstream world, you've got two ways you can go. You've got the e-Golf, which is just a Golf. And
would you like it gas or electric? I'll have electric.
I'll have electric, please. Yeah, and that's very conventional, almost too much so. There's no novelty value. The same with the electric Kia Soul. It's just a Kia Soul that happens to run on electricity. Very few actual differences in the way it looks. And then you've got the other extreme, you've got like the BMW i3, which is sort of willfully concept car-y. And apparently so much so, one of the problems BMW have had, because they're not selling as many i3s or i8s as they'd hoped, one of the problems they've got is that people don't believe they exist. They see them on posters and they think, oh, look, BMW is showing us some of their concept cars. I'll go and buy a 3 Series while I wait for those to go into production. They can't believe, and particularly because not every BMW dealer is an i-dealer, So they can walk into the local BMW showroom, never see an i3 or an i8, and not have any concept that they could actually lay down some money for one. They've gone too futuristic in a way. It's difficult to know. Go too conventional, people go, well, I'm an early adopter, I want my electric car to be futuristic.
Yeah.
Or go too futuristic and it just puts people off because either they can't believe it exists or they believe it exists, but they find it too extreme.
Well,
so it's a hard one to
It's easier to do
pitch.
also some of the more extreme electric car designs, when Tesla has set more of the groundwork for you by making it less remarkable that there should be an electric car.
Tesla themselves are the early adopter, if you like. They're the pioneers.
Yeah, they are, absolutely. Yeah, they certainly are.
So I don't know about this Faraday Future thing. There's a lot of murky and quite negative reporting about it.
Yes.
But there's one way for them to silence the negative reporting is to get the car out there, show into the hands of people who paid their deposits and see if it actually works, and if it really is good at the self or semi-self-driving part of it, which they're claiming it will be, and if it actually works as a proper car. Because there's lots of people have found, including Tesla, because if you look online, there's all sorts of people having all sorts of problems with early model Teslas. It's really hard to make a car work properly from scratch.
They
You design it from new.
They get a lot of abuse. We
pain in the
do
bum.
all sorts of terrible things to them,
Yes.
and we expect them to keep working almost perfectly.
It's like someone from a big car company once said to me that the modern car is electronically in so many ways as complicated as an airliner, but an airliner is only operated and maintained by hugely qualified people, whereas a car can be owned and maintained by people with no qualifications or abilities whatsoever, and they have to factor that into the way they design them, and that again is a pain in the bum.
Is that why the tailgate on your Land Rover Defender squeaks?
No, that's just because it's a piece of 1940s farm equipment.
Yes, mate. Hello. I was wondering if you could do a quick service. Yeah, what's it on? It's a 320. BMW, Airbus. Right. And what's your name, mate? It's Airways. British Airways. Got it. Have you been to JT Autos before, mate? No, I usually have it done at the official service centre, but it's just so expensive. Could you tell me how much this will be, please? Service on an Airbus? About 150 quid, mate. That seems awfully cheap. Yeah, well, it's only a medium-range jet airliner, mate. Not some old Land Rover. Well, that's marvellous. Oh, yeah, one more thing. This 320 of yours, is it petrol or diesel? I'm sorry? What flavour is it, mate? Plain. Oi, Daz, stop dicking around with that drum kit and finish mending that Boeing, you muppet!
Sniff Petrol with Gareth Jones on speed!
I read a book a couple of years ago about the build-up to the Industrial Revolution. It's a Welsh history book, because Wales, being the first industrialised nation in the world, went through all this before a lot of other places. It's true, Wales was the first industrialised nation in the world. We had the coal, we had the steel, before England.
There you go. No, I'm just slight. Yeah, you're right. Moving on.
It's true. But in the lead up to the Industrial Revolution, there were sort of several pre-industrial revolutionary troughs and peaks where revolutions seemed to be about to happen, and then the companies who were financing them went bust, and that allowed others to succeed as they swallowed up. And I guess a similar sort of thing could happen in the motor industry at the moment. Tesla, well, they're in a reasonable situation for the moment, but how long have they got before they need to be making real cash to survive? Faraday Future, brand new brand. When was the last time we had a brand, out-of-the-box new brand in the car world that's succeeded? The last one I can think of was Saturn.
Smart car?
Well,
Smart. Yeah.
I mean, smaller ones, Ariel,
Yeah.
Tesla. But yeah, they're few and far between. Koenigsegg are fairly young, aren't they? But,
We almost lost
Although
Smart,
it's
actually.
easier to do in an odd way with a really kind of high-end car than it is to do with a,
Yes.
with a mass market
Yeah.
product.
But Smart
But
don't
then-
really count because they were originally
It's actually a bit of a niche
VW
thing.
Swatch and
Yeah.
then Swatch Mercedes, so they were just a child of rather than from scratch.
Yeah, well,
Fairly.
it was sold, wasn't it? The original investors, Swatch, dumped out of it, didn't they? And Mercedes Chinese picked it up and ran it themselves. They'd given up. They figured they couldn't do it. They're fools. Because we all want a smart now, don't we?
Yeah. Speaking of car companies that probably don't make any money,
Yeah.
there's smart.
But it's like, as I say, we're at this kind of sort of point in evolution where it's like early days of the railways as well.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of companies went bust. A lot
Yeah.
of people lost money investing in big railways here in the States and in other countries as well, I'm sure. People believe, mostly rightly, that this thing is going to be one of the next big things. They pile into it. Some of them make a fortune, some of them lose a fortune.
Yeah.
So if you were going to come up with a brand out of the blue, we've got Tesla, we've got Faraday. Who are the other great electrical engineers? Volta?
Engineers rather than
Well,
theoreticians?
Theoreticians, okay, as well, yeah.
I go Maxwell. James Clerk Maxwell, I'd
Yeah,
go for.
Ampera?
Yeah.
Volta?
Ampera
And it's
probably
been
owned
taken.
by GM, I guess, as a
The name?
Yeah.
vehicular
Yeah.
trademark.
I'd
I quite
let-
fancy an Ampera. You know Johnny Smith, friend
Yeah.
of the show?
Yeah.
I saw him over Christmas and he was waxing lyrical about he's got a Volt, but it's
Yeah.
the same car. And he's discovered there's only 131 Volts were ever imported into the UK, so he sort of feels like he's part of an elite club. But I was looking, there's actually 2 Volts for sale at the moment. And there's a lovely one. It's not far from my house, and I was going, I'll have him on my little, I should have an electric car thing for the sort of commute that I have to do around.
You're trying to
top
talk
end of
yourself into a
London.
new car, basically.
Okay.
I am, yeah.
That's okay. we
But
understand.
not sell the Land Rover, just get something else just for crawling around congested
Yeah.
North Circular, Central London traffic.
And getting around the congestion, yes.
And then
not
it's like,
paying
oh, and then I was
charge,
thinking,
yeah.
anyway, I won't bore you with that because we've been through it once before and I always just then wuss out. But I have started looking at Amperas/Volts because they seem like an underrated car. I mean, we drove it on the show.
I remember you liked it
I
on
think
the
they
programme.
did,
Yeah.
I think they're fine.
But if you were going to start a British electric car company, a British startup, it'd have to be called Lathwaite, wouldn't it? If Vauxhall created a sub-brand of Lathwaite, the man who invented the linear motor, and therefore gave us maglev. And have you ever heard Lathwaite talk? He was one of those great British engineers who, we think we're so clever inventing LCDs, and we realise butterflies grew them 5 million years ago on their wings. Lovely considered man. I'd like a Lathwaite. That would do, wouldn't it? Do you drive a Lathwaite, sir?
No, it sounds
It's
like one
too
of those
British a name.
companies. Yeah.
It's too. Yeah, it sounds like it's a pinchback
Yes.
or something. It's too sort of.
Yes. Their last car, the Super Special 50, finally went out of production in 1952, and after that the company went bust.
Exactly. Yeah,
It's old-fashioned, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's a bit tweedy.
The Lathwaite
Doesn't sound
11.
high-tech.
It's
It
not,
sounds
it's
the opposite.
not a 21st century name.
It
It's
would
not a
suit
21st century
Vauxhall
car.
then, wouldn't
Hated
it?
rivals of Morgan, Lathwaite. Yes, they used oak for their frames. We told them they were wrong, but they did it anyway, and that's why they're not around anymore. Ha!
That'll teach them.
Exactly.
All this new stuff that's emerging is changing the shape of the motor industry, because if you wanted to see a car launch in the past, you'd go to Geneva, you go to Detroit, you go to... Do you remember when Britain had a decent motor show that wasn't the Goodwood Festival of Speed?
Yeah. I remember it used to have an Earl's Court even.
Yes, or XL. Yeah.
It's just been knocked down, hasn't it?
Earl's Court.
Yeah.
Has it?
Yeah, well, in the process of
whole-
knocking it down, yeah.
The Earl's Court Exhibition Centre.
Yeah, the
Wow.
motor show was such a failure there, they've had to knock the building down.
To erase the memory.
Yeah,
Crikey.
but then it was also
Okay.
at the Birmingham NEC, and that was no better. Well, I mean, I don't know. Shame about the British Motor Show.
So,
But-
motor shows, certainly in Britain, have mostly failed. And I've noticed that the Consumer Electronics Show, CES, which used to be just a video game event when I started covering it years ago, it's now become more and more of a car event.
Oh, 2 reasons for that, I'd say. First of all, everything is software now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just, it's the fact that software is at the heart of so much of this stuff. And so, of course, a lot of those companies who would have been at CES for years are heavily involved in new cars. But also, because we're largely talking about new electric vehicles here, mostly, the fact is that the traditional motor industry has not been very welcoming to the new electric vehicle manufacturers. In fact, they've been really very hostile. Tesla have had quite a big legal fight in the States with the auto industry because their plan to sell cars direct to the customer through their own showrooms and through whatever other means they might sell direct to people. It seems like that in some way technically is against some bit of legislation that has to do with selling cars in the States, and the auto industry has been fighting Tesla in order to force them to sell cars the way that they're selling cars through dealers.
Speaking of which,
isn't that what?
that's about the gist of it. Yeah,
So,
these big, powerful dealer groups, basically, because they're terrified, Tesla have found a way to cut them out.
Yeah.
And good. idle, greedy, grasping swines that they are.
Richard, have you had a bad experience with a dealership recently?
Yeah, I have, but only with the service department. The sales department actually very, very good. I should mean. But did you see? Because car dealers are doomed ultimately, and in some cases good. Last week, Hyundai announced you can now just buy one of their cars off the website.
And they're not the
Really?
first Korean company to do that. Do you remember that was Daewoo's whole shtick when Daewoo first appeared in the country? There were no Daewoo dealerships. It was all bought from, I think it was mail order.
Well, no, it was a little bit different because it was kind of pre-widespread internet. So
Yeah.
they were selling them through Halfords, but it was more like a
Halfords.
shop mentality. So
Yeah.
you went in, you went, I'll have a green
Right, yeah,
one,
I'll
please.
have 5 litres of oil,
And a
I think
terrible
chamois leathers,
car that looks a bit
and
like
one
an
of
Astra.
Yeah, and you have to buy it in component form because Halfords only sell components. Yeah, have you got the wheels to, what was it called, the Nubera? Nubera. What sort of name was that for a car anyway? The cars were perfectly fine. They sold them as GMs elsewhere in the world, didn't they? But they just didn't catch on.
Oh yeah, I found that Hyundai thing quite interesting because that is, I think, the first time. And they've been trying it with Rycar and stuff. We're trying to do it a little bit, and Virgin Cars years ago tried to do
Yeah,
it.
remember
yeah,
that?
yeah,
I worked for them, and it was a little bit ahead of its time, and too ahead of its time, and that's why it didn't quite work. But this Hyundai thing now, you go, that's really interesting. But the trouble is, I always think people get home drunk and accidentally buy an i20 or something. I don't know how much your cooling off period is.
Yeah.
Or my mate C, who one day opened his front door, there's a courier there, this massive box. He took it inside, he opened it up, there were 2 Japanese ceremonial swords in there, and he went, oh my God, this is some kind of coded threat. I've upset, I don't know, the triads or something. This is terrifying. Oh my God. And it was only when he happened to check his credit card statement, he realised that he'd ordered them himself, but he was pissed.
You know what, Richard? Your
We've all
current
done it.
employer are the perfect people to take advantage of this. If you think about it.
What,
you know,
drunk Amazon?
Yeah, drunk Amazon. Yeah, Amazon.
I suspect that is a
paying for the
portion of
grand
their
tour,
business. Yeah.
you know, dealing with cars. If you were to advertise cars, you could click through and buy any of the vehicles and have it delivered with a drone to your front door by
Well-
Amazon within 30 seconds.
Yeah, that drone
I
technology
think
can have to develop
Amazon have
something.
already put their toe into the water in the US with selling cars.
Yeah.
Tie up with, was it Cadillac, I think? Or Chrysler? Oh, God, I can't remember now. Yeah, just as an experiment. I don't think it's nationwide, but they were just trying it out. It's no great secret the Grand Tour is just a 3-year deal for the initial thing. The Grand Tour is not some kind of bridgehead for Amazon to start selling cars in the UK. It won't happen that quickly. But you make a good point that it's also no secret that part of the future of their tech is that you'll be able to press a button on your remote. You'll see, if you're watching a movie, say that Kevin Spacey is wearing a Hugo Boss suit, and then dink, I'll have that suit, please.
Or Kevin Spacey.
I'd like Kevin Spacey, please, delivered to my door. So, yeah, this is why car dealers are doomed. Because once you get one of the big lads like Amazon, Tesco are trying selling cars for a while, aren't they, as well? So once they start wading in, we
Almost
can
all of your
verify
physical
a car.
stuff, almost all of your sort of, whether it's, high street or whatever, physical sales channels, unless it's really sort of quite specialised things or things where you really want to go and spend your time on this thing, of course, this is all going to go online.
The only thing is, what we found with Virgin Cars, because I did work for them for a while, is that people still want to poke around a car and sit in it and test drive it,
Yeah.
important, before they commit, because it's
Hey.
a huge amount of money.
Go to CES, that's where all the cars are then.
Well, apparently so. But that's the only thing. So Virgin had this thing where you could ring up or go online and then they would bring a car round to you to test drive. But it's logistically really difficult to do.
Give it 5 years and better haptic technology,
Yeah.
more immersive VR stuff. You're just going to
Yeah.
put your goggles on, put your haptic gloves on, and you'll be able to rummage around in that second-hand or new car to your heart's content.
Ooh, so I don't want to rummage in a second.
I was
car.
just-
Go, oh,
yeah.
man, it's something sticky. Something virtually
No, but,
sticky.
But this is perfect because you get to see whether it's sticky or not without your hand actually having to get in contact with the sticky.
You
This is
won't need a
perfect.
test drive because you won't be driving the car.
Because it'll be
That's true,
autonomous.
yeah.
The new Lathwaite Super Special 50. With modern features, including anti-lock doors, intermittent windscreen, and central looking. Plus, leather upholstery, even for the wife's seat.
Thank you, darling.
With a 5-square cubic engine producing 19 horses and capable of covering 7 furlongs on just a jigger of methylation, she's a sporty little number and no mistake.
Hurrah!
If you've enjoyed one of Lathwaite's previous fine motoring cars, you're sure to enjoy the Super Special 50, especially since this one has brakes. Sometimes. Ah!
Gareth Jones on speed.
I'm always impressed if you read an article and it starts with a quote from history or a poem or something like that. That's what proper academics do. So I'm going to start this section here with a quote. The quote is from Mark Fields, who is the President and Chief Executive of the Ford Motor Company. And I saw him say this on telly the other day. It made the news. I was very pleased to see Ford in the news. But he said, all of these factors, coupled with segmentation shifts we are seeing in the marketplace and our effort to fully utilise the capacity at existing facilities, have prompted us to invest in Flat Rock's expansion and cancel building new plant in Mexico. So that's Mark Fields talking about Ford's, well, to some surprising decision to invest in America and not Mexico. But my favourite bit is the word segmentation ships.
Yeah, that's not my favourite.
That's another beautiful example of Ford going forward with their lovely corporate speak. I love that.
So here's the translation of that.
Yeah.
People aren't buying small cars in the US because petrol prices are consistently low at the moment. So they're going back to buying bigger stuff and trucks.
Correct.
So Ford doesn't need a massive factory in Mexico to make smaller cars.
Yes.
It can concentrate its efforts on what it's got. No point in building a new factory wherever it is when you have an existing factory that for a lot less money could be reconfigured to make stuff. What they haven't mentioned is all Focus production is going down to Mexico.
Yeah.
All of it. Previously some made in the US. They've soft-pedalled that, but really all they're doing is then amping up the positive bit of this decision they made weeks and months ago, because big companies don't make decisions like that on something as massive as this, particularly not Ford, because they're not silly with their money. Only American giant that didn't need a bailout in the end.
Ford managed it without. That's right.
Yeah,
Similarly, BMW said the same thing. BMW were made a fantastic... Is it Ian Phillips, who's the Brit-born head of sales and marketing for BMW, talking at Detroit?
Robertson.
He said that, well, you know, we have a long-term manufacturing strategy. We've thought about this, and we have a flexible system where we can build any car at any plant on any line. Yeah, he was driving home, I think, the point that Trumponomics will not affect the megalith that is BMW. They have their own inertia.
Well, here's the other bit of the Ford announcement I think is quite interesting, is the fact they are moving the focus entirely down to Mexico. They still need to bring those cars over the border, not necessarily in the quantities that they thought they would have for overall Focus demand as long as petrol stays low. But they do still need to bring cars over the border. So they've just given Trump a little bit of a PR gift. It's a PR gift for themselves because it makes them look like the heroes, makes them look like they're trying to do their bit to make America great again, whatever that means. And Trump can play off it as well. But in return, Ford will want some say over these threatened tariffs, and they will go in and go, Mr. President, you know how we made you look really good back in January? Well, hey, let's just go easy on these tariffs, shall we?
Hang on a moment, Richard. That sounds like the Brexit Nissan-May deal in Washington Time Aware. Exactly the same sort of thing that happened there.
What, you mean a complete load of bull to make politicians look like they know what they're doing?
Yes! Because we know they don't.
It would assume that Trump was the kind of person that would deal fairly and listen to a rational argument. Whereas that just isn't, the speed with which he's entirely dissociated himself, things that he's said very loudly and clearly and unambiguously, just because it suits him right now, tells you that you shouldn't expect him to...
You're going to get a tweet about you now. Tsar gets totally overrated.
Yeah, and please,
sad.
Can we all find, if only we could all find ways to make him waste just a little bit more of his so precious time tweeting at 60-year-old school children or whoever else he just happens to have come across the
He is slipperier than a 10-year-old cross-blight tyre on a Morris Minor on ice, isn't he? Shocking man. Yeah.
Baffling.
The other quote, Nissan, who are also showcasing cars at CES, said that they're using NASA tech experts to develop autonomy in their cars. NASA say this on behalf of Nissan. They expect that most driving jobs will be eliminated in coming years as autonomous vehicles are able to drive safer and for lower price than humans. While this will bring some positive effects to our world, they say, it will also leave many people jobless.
I think that's unquestionably true.
Do they mean us? Or do they mean journalists who review
they're not the
cars?
first people that have said that.
No, I mean, that's true of everything, though, isn't it? I mean, actually, just in the past few weeks, some Japanese civil servants were replaced by automated systems that are advanced enough to make value judgments on things. And this is just the way that it's going to go.
Some traders
mechanisation
recently
and automation are just going to
some city traders have been
take
replaced
our
by
place.
bots.
Audi
more and more stuff.
Audi are experimenting with autonomous forklifts at the moment in their factory. Rather than have drivers, they've turned all their forklifts over to autonomy, and the software and what they're learning from that they're going to put into their cars, apparently. Well, I rather suspect that the smooth, even, predictable floor of a factory, highly ordered, is quite different to the software that cars would need in the real world.
Yeah, there's far fewer variables, I guess, isn't there? Just to make sure you don't run over someone. We were filming the Grand Tour on the docks at Rotterdam, and there's trucks that move containers around there, and I think they have a degree of autonomy as well. They just you just see them cruising. Particularly the empty ones are particularly spooky, because they just sort of silently move. They were on the opposite side from where we were. We were sort of watching them from afar, and you couldn't see any people over there. You just saw machines going about their business. It's fascinating.
Skynet.
And do you know what? They told me that the central controller for the machines was located in Hong Kong.
Really?
Yeah.
At least it's on Earth, not in orbit, like Skynet.
We needed to get something noisy turned off, because they'd promised us that we would make any noise, and they were making noise on a weekend, and we said to the guy who managed the place, could we get that turned off? And he went, well, yeah, I'll have to ring Hong Kong and get them to do it.
Really?
It's like, wow.
But actually,
the future's amazing.
You could get quicker control actually from something in space, given that you could be only 300 miles away in space in low Earth orbit.
Well, funny.
Whereas Hong Kong, a few thousand miles.
Funny you should say that, because that NASA tech, the autonomy that Nissan are setting out to achieve, is using a NASA tech, is it called SAM? Do you remember when Tim Peake operated a rover from the ISS? The rover was in Cambridge at the Mars Yard.
I think the robot was Eurobot, and that I think was part of ESA's Meteoron program.
But the software application, or the whole project, was called SAM, which I think stands for something like Seamless Autonomous Mobility. And so more and more autonomy will actually be done from space.
But some of the stuff for autonomous cars is slightly contingent, I believe, and I saw this in some of the coverage of CES, on the next generation mobile phone technology, 5G. Because it needs that car-to-car communication as part of the whole
swarming
mesh of it, that cars warn each other about other things. Can I just bring things clunking back to the present, or possibly even slight past, with the Detroit show, which is on this week, just after CES, and it's sort of, the future, and then, I don't know what you'd call it, but sort of not so far future. I mean, there's lots of interesting high-tech-y stuff. New Lexus LS, have you seen this?
Oh, yes.
Tremendous-looking thing. Long, but with a great deal of presence, and yet very sort of elegant. Almost, I don't think it looks like a Jag, but it has that sort of that quality that, yes, it's low. It's much lower than the old one.
And wider and longer.
And even that they've taken down, not just the roofline is lower, but then the commensurate bonnet and boot have gone down, so the whole thing has this litheness to it.
And no
the interior
V8.
looks tremendous. No V6. That's a worry, because I swear that Toyota still makes straight sixes, and you cannot beat a straight six for smoothness.
Hey, I can vouch for that. Exactly. I've got one in my motor outside.
So it's a shame about that, but I guess there's probably some efficiency and packaging reasons why it's a V6 with a hybrid on it. But it looks tremendous. The interior looks really good. And the other one, which is very old school, is Kia. That new saloon they've done.
Stinger.
Two things about that. First of all, it's like they've just gone back to the future. It's a big rear-wheel drive saloon with a turbocharged V6 petrol engine in it. It sounds fantastic and very old-fashioned in concept, but it looks great. Also,
it's the best-looking Kia.
I think so. It's just, it's terrific. No question. And is it the point where people really sort of go, because already I think Kia are taken quite seriously because they make good cars, but this is the point where they can kind of go, ooh, actually
it's quite nice. It's a bit generic, but it's really nicely done.
It's a good-looking car, but it could be improved. Look at the rear. Just look at the detail of the C-pillar and when it finishes. It's screaming out for the Jensen Interceptor bubble back. You look at that line, it's as if they've just taken the bubble back off an Interceptor. And if you put that back on there, I'd buy a Kia straight away.
Well, I'd buy one just for the name, because I think for too long now, cars have had quite sanitised names, and often it's just letters and numbers and things like that.
Twingo.
A car with a proper fighty, silly name. Stinger! Rah! I like it for that alone. And I know it's probably just the dying gasps of old cars and old technology, and there will never be an electric car called the Stinger, but let's enjoy it while we can.
Let's embrace it.
Richard, is that why you've just put a deposit on the new Ford Mother Death
No, because I decided to get a Vauxhall thrust hammer in the end.
Good choice.
And there's that interesting meeting of technology and retro with that VW microbus sort of prestige.
I thought that was fascinating because, apart from the fact that I think we all fondly remember the VW Campus, it's an iconic vehicle, even if you're not really a dyed-in-the-wool hippie. I can see this is making
I just
Richard
don't like
incredibly
them.
Okay, well, everyone apart from
I know.
I think they're terrific. Yeah, they're talking about that being an autonomous vehicle. Now, that is the perfect vehicle to be a self-driving vehicle. You know,
you can go in the back and have a brew.
You and your mates
Exactly.
in the back. You know, exactly. Playing cards.
Did you see the interior photos of it as well? Because it has no steering wheel, at least in the shot. I don't know whether it retracts or something, but the interior looked really weird, like there's something missing. Well, because
the steering wheel.
It just looks freaky. It's like someone who hasn't got any nose.
It's interesting, though. That vehicle has evolved since it first appeared as a concept many, many years ago, and it looked a lot more modern when it was a concept. Now it's getting closer to production. It looks more like the old VW. Now, VW have an identity problem at the moment, don't they? They're desperately trying to distance themselves from evil diesel, and they're focusing on electric cars and green petrol cars. That's a big part of their target at the moment. It seems as along with that package is VW's heritage. That microbus looks more like a microbus than it used to.
Forget we were evil with diesel, just remember our Nazi association.
Yeah, that'll swing it every time.
Do you know why it looks more like the original microbus now in its electric form than it did in the previous concept? It's
Split windscreen?
No, because it's
just
got a
marketing?
flatter front, because it doesn't have to have the engine up there.
Yeah.
And more importantly, it doesn't have to have enough radiator and then have enough space for pedestrian impact. All that goes, because you can put the electric motors down, the batteries down, everywhere out of the way. It means they can flatten off the front again, so it looks much more like an old air-cooled rear engine thing.
Don't you think that the people of Smart and Mercedes who came up with that lovely sandwich platform 4, which was originally designed to have batteries in to give you that frontal impact strength without a big long bonnet at the front, don't you think that they're walking around kicking their own backsides like this, going, we're only 10 years too early. If we'd come up with that now, we'd be billionaires. The future is a difficult beast to predict, isn't it?
Was it no, it wasn't Heisenberg.
I'm not certain if it was him. That's my science joke for the day. Was it Heisenberg? I don't know, I'm not certain.
I'm trying to remember which famous quantum physicist said, it's always very hard to make predictions, especially about the future.
And I think that's where we should leave it. You've been listening to Richard Porter.
Bye-bye.
To Zog.
Goodbye.
And I'm Gareth, and this was series 13 of Gareth Jones on Speed, beginning before your very ears. You may have noticed that this is episode 299, which means that the next episode of Gareth Jones on Speed is episode 300. We would like your contributions. If you've got anything that you remember over the 300 episodes that we've made of this programme that you think is worth talking about or hearing again, do let us know. Email us on speed@garethjones.tv. But for now, see ya.
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site, follow us on Twitter, or to find out about sponsorship opportunities, go to garethjones.tv.
Niels Bohr, that's who it was.
What?
Niels Bohr was the guy who said it's hard to make predictions, especially about the future. Sorry, I just had to throw that.
No, I'm glad we got there in the end.
Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!